Hello and welcome to a short, sharp tutorial on Paper 1, Question 4. Going to go over some of the little pitfalls involved in this question, going to go over some of the things that candidates tend to forget to do, and going to show you an example of a good response and how it matches up to the criteria. All right, let's get stuck in. So here's an example of Question 4 from Paper 1. This is the question that you answered in our Paper 1 mock exam, so hopefully you're familiar with this. It was the Ray Bradbury text about the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, really important to read the question very carefully. Like some of the other questions, you are directed to a certain part of the text. This time it's line 31 to the end, and if you write about detail from the text that's outside of that range, then you won't be scoring marks. Also, we've got this statement and we decide to what extent we agree. And there's all this kind of people talk about it's always best to agree or it's always best to disagree. I think what it's always best to do is to read the statement and decide what you could write most skillfully about. Could you agree or could you disagree or could you somewhat agree? What have you got the most evidence for from the text? Also, at the bottom here, you've got these 3 bullet points, and these are things that the exam board suggest that you could do. And as we all know, when they say could, that's secret code for you should do these things. So most certainly, you want to be writing about your impressions of Mr. Eccles' reaction to the T-Rex. You also, and this is a really common one that people forget to do, evaluate how the writer has described the monster. And you definitely want to be supporting your response with references to the text, i.e. using quotes, which a lot of people forgot to do in the mock exam. And one final detail of great import when looking at this question is thinking about the amount of marks that it's worth. It's worth 20 marks. That's 50% of all the marks from the reading section. That's a lot of marks. So it's worthy of quite a bit of your time, maybe 25 minutes or so. And also, your response here should be developed and sustained. Okay, so these are some common mistakes that candidates tend to make when approaching this question. First one, not writing about the writer's methods. So that middle bullet point in the question, that encourages you to think about what techniques, methods the writer has used to have an impact. Also, forgetting to quote the text altogether happens quite frequently. And if you're not quoting the text, you can't write about it in great detail. So picking out those short, punchy quotes for analysis is a really good way to go. And because this question is worth 20 marks, if your response doesn't provide a range of examples from the text, that's going to limit the marks that you can score for this question. So you want to work your socks off at providing a good selection of examples from the text and writing about them. Okay, we've had to think about what not to do. Now let's think about what we definitely should do. Here's the question once again. You answered it in your mock exam. I'm going to show you an example that I've done. I've got here each of the bullet points from the mark scheme. So we want to satisfy all of these criteria. Okay. When I looked at the text, I thought about the statement and I thought, yes, Eccles was right to panic, but the other characters who were with him didn't panic. They stayed level-headed and they dealt with the situation as it was put in front of them. So a massive great T-Rex burst out of the forest in a mess of chunks of tree bark and leaves and roared, and Eccles completely lost all hope and he gave up. The others didn't, and it was those others that saw them out of that situation alive. If everybody had have given up like Eccles, they would have all been killed by the T-Rex. So, in some ways, I agree, because we're certainly given evidence that the T-Rex is monstrous and terrifying. But also there's evidence, I think, to show that Eccles could have been more level-headed. Okay, I somewhat agree that Eccles is right to panic when he sees the monster. It is definitely terrifying, but the text also shows that it is not an immortal god, as Eccles suggests. He refers to it as a great evil god. The writer uses imagery to present the T Rex as a remorseless machine. Each lower leg was a piston, he says. This metaphor emphasizes the strength and power of the T Rex and has some connotations of robustness and solidity. The writer takes the metaphor even further when he says that the T Rex has armor and the skin is covered in steel mesh. And all of this portrays the T Rex as impervious to any damage that the men might do to it, especially as Eccles regards his weapon as a toy gun, a humorously useless weapon against such a powerful enemy. And then the second half of my response, I say, however, the narration is given to us from Eccles' perspective. And Eccles is a man who is completely given into despair and hopelessness. Quote, "We were fools to come, this is impossible," he tells Travis in two short statements of fact, showing us that he cannot imagine surviving this situation. But Travis is not as hopeless as Eccles and is level headed and practical. "Shut up," he shouts to Eccles. Eccles' panic is shown to be unjustified at the end of the extract when the men are able to kill the monster. Like an avalanche, Tyrannosaurus fell. The simile compares the T Rex to another terrifying force of nature, an avalanche, but it has been defeated by the men and their toy guns. Eccles was wrong to panic, and it nearly cost him his life. So I didn't really follow any secret code about agreeing or disagreeing with the statement. I simply read the statement and read the text and then decided what I thought about it. And that's the advice I give to you too. But also, I really wanted to make sure that I achieved each of these four criteria. So I made sure that when I was referencing the text, which I did with quotes quite regularly, that I was writing about the methods that the writer has used and showing my understanding of those methods. And I kept it focused on the statement. And I talked about the effects on the reader as well. I do hope that this has been helpful. If there are any other questions you'd like a short video tutorial about, please let me know using this email address here, and I'll try my hardest to get something out as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. Best of luck.